You'll understand precisely why it works and how to fine-tune angles, pacing, and touch so that the entire experience is tailored to her specific body rather than following some generic script. Before we dive in, there's one foundational truth that will make everything else fall into place much more clearly. For a great many women, physical pleasure rests on two essential pillars: comfortable and consistent blood flow to the relevant tissue and dependable external stimulation occurring simultaneously alongside internal movement. Large, peer-reviewed studies consistently demonstrate that only a minority of women actually reach climax through internal movement alone. The majority either require or strongly prefer the addition of external touch happening at the same time, and a substantial number of women report that receiving both forms of stimulation simultaneously makes the entire experience not only easier to achieve, but significantly more intense and satisfying overall. This is precisely why positions that naturally allow for easy and accessible contact at the front of the pelvis while simultaneously maintaining a comfortable internal angle tend to be the clear winners for so many couples. With that foundation established, let's Why Female Psychology Matters count down the 5 positions women most frequently appreciate, drawn from a combination of broad surveys and detailed clinical research. And then we'll turn our attention to 2 positions that look appealing in theory, but that many women find genuinely disappointing when put into actual practice. Coming in at 5th place is the sideline position, more commonly known to most people as spooning. This is a quiet, low-effort configuration that is considerably more effective and enjoyable than its modest reputation on a written list might suggest. The sideline position gives both partners easy face-to-neck access for kissing and physical closeness, makes it straightforward and natural to place a hand at the front for external stimulation, and significantly reduces the physical demand on the hips and knees by eliminating the need for deep hip flexion or sustained knee strain. Because both pelvises are oriented in parallel alignment, the internal angle produced is typically gentle and smoothly gliding rather than sudden or abrupt. This translates to considerably more opportunity for gradual, slow pressure changes and a substantially reduced risk of the kind of jarring contact that can pull either partner out of the experience entirely. Here is what makes this position function so effectively in practice. Place a small pillow or a neatly folded towel between the knees to properly align the hips with one another. Keep all movements short and rhythmically consistent so that the base of your pelvis can remain in steady contact with the front of her body, maintaining reliable and uninterrupted external stimulation. This is also one of the very best positions to combine with a gentle rocking motion rather than large repetitive in and out strokes. Many women report that a steady, grounded base that presses consistently forward against the front of the pelvis produces a far more pleasurable experience than long, sweeping, repetitive thrusting. The sensation remains rather than constantly fading and rebuilding. The 4th position that women rate consistently and highly is the seated edge or lap position, also described as emotional attraction versus physical attraction seated face to face. In this configuration, one partner sits on a stable and sturdy surface, such as the edge of a bed or a firm, supportive chair, while the other partner straddles them while facing forward. The resulting posture is naturally upright and open. Eye contact between partners is effortless and easy to maintain. The chest-to-chest physical contact promotes a sense of relaxation and emotional connection, and both partners find themselves with their hands completely free to use as they choose. In this arrangement, the seated pelvis typically remains relatively still while the receiving partner takes full control of both the angle and the depth of movement. And because the torsos of both partners are held close together, it becomes entirely easy to incorporate external touch or discrete device into the experience without disrupting the intimacy of the moment in any way. This position also naturally encourages a slower rocking style of movement that keeps consistent pressure at the front of the pelvis, rather than involving the constant withdrawal of sensation that other positions can produce. Many women express a clear preference for this sustained contact, specifically because it keeps stimulation precisely where they feel it most powerfully and reliably. The most important mental shift to make here is to think in terms of rolling and pressing rather than pulling back and pushing forward. Keep the base of your pelvis in full and continuous contact so that pressure at the front of the pelvis never drops away or gets interrupted. Coming in at third place is the face-to-face lying position with the penetrating partner positioned above. Most people would recognize this as the classic foundational face-to-face configuration. Critics occasionally dismiss this position as overly basic or unimaginative, but when it is executed thoughtfully and with real attention to detail, it is anything but. This is the single easiest position for kissing naturally, breathing together in a synchronized and calming way, and reading your partner's facial expressions and subtle physical cues in real time, all of which actively assist the nervous system in settling into a relaxed and receptive state. And a body that is genuinely relaxed is a body that is physiologically capable of feeling more sensation, not less. This position also allows for very precise, and position number 1, women secretly love intentional control over the internal angle. Placing a small pillow beneath the receiving partner's hips tilts the pelvis in a way that aligns the internal surface directly with the front of the body, creating a more favorable and pleasurable angle. From this adjusted position, you can keep your pelvis pressed consistently forward rather than continuously retreating away. And that sustained forward pressure is genuinely significant because it makes it considerably easier to pair internal movement with simultaneous external contact at the front. This combination of a gentle and well-considered internal angle paired consistent front of pelvis stimulation at the same time represents one of the most dependable and reliable pathways to intense pleasure for a wide range of women. What truly separates a mediocre experience in this position from an exceptional one is deliberately shortening your range of motion and incorporating a subtle but intentional forward press at the very bottom of each movement so that sensation never completely disappears or resets. If you're looking to increase intensity without resorting to greater depth or force, use a folded towel to adjust the tilt of her pelvis rather than simply increasing the power or speed of your movement. The second most widely appreciated position overall is woman on top face to face. The defining feature and greatest advantage of this position can be summarized in a single word: control. In this configuration, she independently sets the angle, the depth, the rhythm, and the speed, and she can modify any or all of those variables at any point during the experience without losing physical or emotional connection with her partner. That level of personal autonomy is genuinely critical because women consistently and routinely describe the experience of consciously adjusting their hips mid-movement to locate the most satisfying internal contact point and to find the optimal way to maintain stimulation at the front of the pelvis. In large population samples, the clear majority of women report deliberately changing their angle and incorporating rocking during intercourse specifically because doing so makes the experience more pleasurable for them. This position makes those precise and personal micro-adjustments completely effortless to perform. Effortless. It also keeps both of her hands entirely free for additional external touch and allows her to lean slightly forward so that the base of her pelvis stays in Y confidence changes, everything dependable uninterrupted contact with the front of her body, where sensation is most concentrated, and it's impactful. What works most effectively in this position is approaching it with a mindset of circles and rocking, rather than large, dramatic up and down bouncing strokes. If her knees begin to feel fatigued, she can easily transition to a supported squat position or bring one knee forward onto the mattress surface, which changes the muscular demand on her legs entirely without altering the sensation pattern that has been working well for her. The position that consistently ranks at the very top across numerous studies is rear entry, whether on hands and knees or with the chest supported. But here's the critical part. There's a specific twist that makes all the difference. This position actually receives polarizing feedback in surveys because when it's approached carelessly, it can feel excessively deep, rushed, and emotionally disconnected. However, when you thoughtfully adjust the angle and deliberately incorporate stimulation at the front of the pelvis, it transforms into one of the most favored positions among couples who truly understand how to use it. The entire secret lies in alignment. When she brings her knees slightly closer together and tilts her hips gently forward, the internal surface being engaged shifts entirely. Incorporating a hand at the front or a discrete device restores the external sensation that most women require to genuinely enjoy this position. Choosing a slower rolling style of movement rather than aggressive forceful thrusting also produces an enormous difference in the overall experience. In broader population surveys, rear entry frequently ranks among the highest overall, but the couples who consistently report loving it most describe precisely these same adjustments every single time. Angle, pace, and pairing it with stimulation at the front of the pelvis. What truly elevates this position is shifting your mental approach from jabbing to gliding. Place a pillow beneath her hips to fine-tune the internal angle and keep a steady hand at the front to sustain sensation exactly where she feels it. Position number 2, that builds emotional intensity most intensely. Now let's have an honest and considerate conversation about 2 positions that many women genuinely dislike, and more importantly, the physiological reasons behind that. This isn't about establishing rigid rules. There are always individual exceptions, but understanding the reasoning will sharpen your ability to read the moment and transition gracefully when something isn't working. The first commonly disliked position is the fully upright standing shower scenario that gets glorified in movies and television. It appears thrilling and dramatic on screen, but the real-world physics are genuinely problematic. Slippery surfaces dramatically reduce stability and control. Water actively strips away natural lubrication. The internal angle is almost never comfortable or ideal, and sustaining consistent external stimulation at the front of the pelvis becomes nearly impossible to maintain. If the setting itself is what appeals to you, simply step out from under the direct stream of water and use a stable surface nearby for support, or transition to a seated variation that immediately restores proper angle and physical balance. The moment remains just as intimate and visually satisfying. The difference is that now it's actually comfortable for both partners. The second commonly disliked position is the hyperacrobatic variation, where the knees are pressed toward the ears, demanding an extreme and often uncomfortable degree of flexibility. For a significant number of women, that intense stretch can feel exposing, vulnerable, and even genuinely painful in the hip joints and lower back. The internal angle in this configuration can also become uncomfortably direct far too quickly. If the sense of openness and closeness that this position creates is what you're after, but without the physical strain, tuck a firm pillow beneath her tailbone to meaningfully reduce the degree of hip flexion required. Keep your range of motion shorter and more controlled, and incorporate a hand at the front. You preserve the visual intimacy and the sense of closeness while redirecting sensation back toward where it genuinely, the power of eye contact and dominance, registers most powerfully for her. At this stage, you might be wondering to yourself, is all of this really just about one specific area at the front of the pelvis? The answer is not exactly, but acknowledging its role genuinely transforms everything about how you approach physical intimacy. Multiple high-quality peer-reviewed studies reveal a consistent and clear pattern. A meaningful portion of women do experience climax through internal movement alone, but the majority either require or strongly prefer simultaneous stimulation at the front of the pelvis alongside internal movement. Furthermore, a large number of women describe the combination of both forms of stimulation as producing fuller, longer-lasting, and far easier to achieve experiences of pleasure. This gives you a clean and practical guiding principle. Prioritize and adjust positions that make front of pelvis contact straightforward and reliably maintainable. From there, you can think about depth, speed, and angle adjustments if you approach it in the opposite order, chasing depth and speed while sensation at the front fades away. You'll watch the moment dissolve right in front of you. Let me now walk you through several practical methods for keeping sensation consistent and steady, regardless of which position you and your partner are in. Start by breathing together for the first 30 seconds. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but synchronized breathing genuinely calms the nervous system, encourages muscle relaxation, and allows physical sensation to register far more clearly and fully. A relaxed body is a body that feels more. Deliberately shorten your range of motion and extend the exhale. Many women describe experiencing a loss of sensation when movement becomes large, repetitive, and mechanical. Smaller, more intentional movement keeps pressure at the front of the pelvis continuous and uninterrupted rather than dropping in and out. When uncertain about what's working, rock and press forward rather than pulling back and retreating. Large population-based research has even assigned specific names to these micro-adjustments. Position number 3, that creates deep connection, referring to them as angling and rocking. And the majority of women report actively using both techniques during intercourse to make the experience feel better for themselves. Use supportive pillows placed beneath the hips or between the knees. These are not compromises or signs of awkwardness. They are precision instruments that adjust the internal angle without requiring any additional force or intensity from the outside. Small shifts in pelvic tilt can produce disproportionately large effects on both comfort and pleasure intensity because they fundamentally realign which internal surface is being engaged and how the base of the pelvis connects with the front of the body. Keep one hand consistently positioned at T-key front, whether it belongs to you, to her, or involves a quiet and discreet device. Maintaining consistent. Stimulation at the front of the pelvis is the single most common difference between almost getting there and actually arriving. This is not a personal opinion. Large nationally representative population samples demonstrate clearly that women who receive external stimulation during intercourse report significantly higher rates of climax compared to those who do not receive it. Pay close attention to tempo as well. Many couples discover that a slower, more deliberate pace in the beginning, with the base of your pelvis maintaining contact rather than repeatedly withdrawing, creates the kind of steady, continuous pressure at the front that builds genuine arousal. Once she is clearly and unmistakably responding with heightened sensation, you can begin layering in greater depth or increased speed. But if you introduce those elements before consistent front of pelvis, sensation has been firmly established. You are effectively building on an unstable foundation that will not hold. Finally, a meaningful word about individual preferences and the essential role of communication. Surveys that catalog and rank favorite positions serve a useful purpose, but they conceal one genuinely important detail that changes everything. What women consistently report loving most is whichever position allows them to fine-tune the internal angle themselves. The first position. Women secretly dislike and maintain steady stimulation at the front of the pelvis without experiencing physical strain or discomfort. In other words, positions are simply structural frameworks to work within. What truly determines the quality of the experience is the custom fit you collaboratively create inside of them. The most genuinely satisfying and memorable encounters are rarely the result of inventing some entirely new acrobatic configuration. They emerge from the ability to read small, subtle physical signals and make precise adjustments to whatever position you're already in. Hips lifted a little higher, range of motion shortened slightly, hand positioned a little more steadily. These are the micro-corrections that matter most. Let me leave you with a straightforward, practical blueprint you can actually apply. If what you want is emotional closeness, clear visual feedback from her face, and the easiest possible path to consistent external contact, begin face-to-face and keep your movement short and controlled. Maintain a hand at the front and press your pelvis forward rather than constantly retreating away from her. If she wants greater personal control over the angle and rhythm, invite a transition to the woman on top position and give her the freedom to set everything herself. Think in terms of curves and circles rather than bouncing and thrusting. If both of you are seeking a deeper internal sensation, transition into rear entry, but pause before adding any intensity and spend time fine-tuning the angle with a pillow and a hand positioned at the front. If you're looking for a quiet, emotionally connected conclusion, slide into the sideline position. The internal angle softens naturally. Both hands remain free and breathing and synchrony together becomes entirely effortless. The single thread that connects all of this is not a trick or a technique, it is a principle. Steady, comfortable stimulation at the front of the pelvis, an adjustable and fine-tunable internal angle, and a style of movement that sustains sensation continuously rather than resetting it with every single stroke. That is precisely what the research demonstrates. That is what women describe when they speak candidly and openly about what genuinely works for them. And that is what transforms an evening from simply good into something truly and genuinely memorable for both why some positions feel emotionally cold partners. If you found this information valuable and useful, please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below, and share which of these positions surprised you the most, or let me know which specific adjustment you're planning to try first. I personally read through the comments. Thank you sincerely for watching, and take good care of